Policy Conference is underway at the Nasrec Expo Centre in the south of Johannesburg. More than 3,000 delegates will over the next 3 days deliberate on policies intended to impact on South Africa as a country. Today the event enters its second day, and for more on this, let's cross to SABC News senior reporter Chriselda Lewis. Very good morning to you, Chriselda. What have you got in store for us?
Well, a very good morning to you on day 2 of the ANC's National Policy Conference, live here from Nasrec. Well, yesterday was quite an eventful day where we saw the President of the country as well as the President of the ANC give his opening address, and of course touching on quite a number of issues, but quite pertinently the Secretary General of the ANC, Mantashe, yesterday, after presenting that diagnostics report on the health of the ANC, speaking to media and bringing up quite a number of issues that are plaguing the ANC. I think it didn't come as a surprise at the start of that media briefing that the ANC had bemoaned, first of all, the decision by the ANC veterans to boycott the first 2 days of this conference, which is meant to look at some of the grievances of these ANC veterans. The Secretary General of the party, Mantashe, is saying that it's unfortunate that they decided to boycott it, and basically said the attitude of these veterans in that they had basically portrayed an attitude of having things their way and not anybody else's was not going to sit well with the African National Congress. But I think one of the other notable things, of course, that was mentioned by the Secretary General is the issue of, you'd note, of course, the Fees Must Fall protests that had plagued South Africa, as well as the Zuma Must Fall protests in South Africa as well, where basically the Secretary General had indicated that these protests did have elements of regime change, wanting to effect regime change. And he made quite a notable example, saying that while these protests are legitimate and do have legitimate concerns, the direction which these protests took do indicate that there are elements that want to effect regime change, making an example, of course, of the Marikana massacre, saying that while everybody looked at police brutality and what led to the killing of these miners, but nobody essentially diagnoses what could have led to such a provocation with the police at the time of the Marikana massacre. So essentially what the ANC is saying is that these protests themselves need to be looked at in context, while they are not vilifying or saying that some of the concerns that are brought forward are not legitimate. On one of the other main issues, of course, what we were all looking to as well in the wake of the Gupta emails, as well, where you would, of course, know that that was one of the issues that the ANC had indicated was tarnishing the image of the governing party. Basically, the ANC saying that you're going to essentially need a judicial commission of inquiry as soon as possible. But, of course, let's just chat now to the head of the drafting committee, Lindiwe Zulu. Thank you very much for your time this morning. Essentially, you're the head of that committee that goes into the drafting of these policy documents and the proposals thereof. What really goes into the process of drafting these policy documents and the key issues that need to go into them?
Yes, of course, the ANC is 105 years old, and therefore the machinery when it comes to preparing for conferences is already in place. That also includes the drafting of documents. The drafting of documents is very important because we have to look at previous documents as to what exactly were in those documents and what new do we want to see in those documents. And as such, that committee then, through the Committee of Policy, which is led by Comrade Jeff Khadebe, would then communicate and package all the documents that need to be taken to the branches, having gone through the NWC, having gone through the NEC itself, approved, and then they go down to the provinces, and then the provinces then process the documents for discussion at branch level. Then come conference, we already have a sense of what needs to go into the documents because all the different units or the different policy units of the ANC would have also worked on the documents. And then when when it comes to conference, during the discussions at commissions, we have to make sure that everything that is being said by the comrades, particularly something that is very new that needs to go into the documents. We've got a whole team of drafters. We've got a whole team of people that take the notes during the commissions. Then we meet, like yesterday, the first meeting took place immediately after plenary to bring together the scribes, those that are scribing, to bring together the chairpersons, so that we make sure that everything that goes to the documents of the ANC reflects exactly the discussions by the comrades, because this is not our conference as NEC members or NWC members. This is a conference of the branches, and therefore we have to be very careful as to how do we put that together.
Just finally, before we wrap, you've obviously needing to take into account the changing challenges. The challenges of yesterday would not be the same as today. So exactly putting into those documents, perhaps, the current economic climate, some of the challenges that the ANC is facing as well are different to the ones that it has been facing over the past couple of years.
That's the reason why we have to have the conference every 5 years, just so as to make sure that the new challenges that are facing the organization, both as an organization but also as government, because as you know, its strategy and tactics is renewal of the ANC, but then it's the policy positions, whether it's education, health, economy and so forth. So we need to focus on what's new that we will be taking to the conference in December.
Thank you very much for your time there. Lindiwe Zulu is the head of the drafting committee. Quite an important role there, of course, looking at what goes in to those policy documents. And once this policy conference get underway, the drafting and putting together of some of the most crucial issues that the governing party thinks needs to be addressed. Well, those committees start today, and essentially that's where the hope is that those responses and perhaps solutions to some of those challenges that are being faced will be found.